our second group of presenters. I'd like to invite at this time Omo Abunene. Omo Abunene is representing the outdoor advertising team. Omo is the managing director of Beam Media Company Limited, Nigeria. Omo, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, I will share your slides. And let me know when to move on to the next one just by saying next.
Okay, I will. Good afternoon once again. Our work is ongoing. My team worked on the outdoor. We're currently working on the outdoor aspect of this work. The perceived communication effects and impact in the 2023 Nigerian presidential election campaign. Next slide, please. Should I go on? Should I go on?
Let's go on.
Okay, fine. We are all aware, at least so far, before our final results come out, that this has been adjudged as the most keenly contested election in Nigeria today. So much so that so many issues were raised and all stakeholders seriously stretched and tested. The media played a very active role, and the outdoor advertising media particularly saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. So what we've tried to do in our group, the work, like I said, is still ongoing. But for this presentation, we've tried our best to hide the good, the bad, and the ugly. So in that way, we're able to know what happened, why it happened, by who, and the effects and all of that. Next slide, please. Okay, so embracing democracy, by popular governments of the people has often been met by different challenges across the world. This has led to the general conclusion that the practice of democracy varies in different climes. When politicians just go for power, they employ all means, including circumventing the law, especially when they can get away with it. In places where the laws are not very strong, where they are weak, or the custodians easily compromised, one can only imagine the extent the politicians will go. This we saw, a great deal, and maybe I will explain as we proceed. Next slide, please. The media in politics. Media helps to amplify activities generally. Whatever we do in our own cocoon, in our classrooms, in our schools, in our businesses, could be kept in that confine. But if it gets into the view of the media, it can be amplified in such a way that it goes across, especially these days of social media and different media platforms. And so politicians all over the world have identified this and make the most of it. Each media platform comes with its strengths. So using various media platforms helps to complement their strengths and enhance better communication. Outdoor advertising billboards has always been optimally used by politicians, especially because it amplifies their visibility because of the visual appeal. Next slide, please. Okay, the users of out-of-home advertising the 2023 presidential election, INEC had 18 political parties, but as it turned out, most of the political parties were actually parties on paper. Okay, so the four dominant political parties that we saw were APC, PDP, LP, NMPP. And maybe I should put this in. Outdoor is relatively simple to use, but complicated at the same time, if not well managed. So in outdoor, we say less is more. What that means is the less you put on a billboard or any outdoor display, the more the audience is able to get your message. especially where you have fast-moving traffic, and all of that. Next slide, please. Okay, like I mentioned, one of the dominant parties that we saw was the APC, yeah? And maybe before I go further on this, they had their core messages. All the parties had their core message, which was, pushed to us through their manifestos, for those of us that were able to go through the manifestos. In other cases, we saw their spokespersons, defend their positions, though some were actually doing damage to their position, like we saw, but they were out there, battling with each other, especially when we see them on television and even social media, where they could really communicate with the people in depth. And another angle was the campaign rallies. Okay, so we saw a situation whereby, for the first time, the campaign rallies was being removed from the jamboree that we've always known and seen. Yeah, so some of the political parties were pushing for better conversation, better discussion, better engagement with the people, as opposed to just coming for political jamboree, dance and leave. So for the APC, like I said earlier, we saw them pushing the message of renewed hope, trying to link it up with MKO Abiola and all of that, and probably gain the goodwill he had, and that probably worked for him, So that was more like the core message they were pushing, and the team to reconnect Nigeria, So they were pushing all of that, not really talking much about, what the administration have done in the past 8 years, But even at that, Nigerians kept questioning, Then another part was unbreakable vow and unstoppable nation. We saw a lot of endorsements from their support groups, and all of that. Also, most of their messages were interpreted in different languages, outdoor, especially in areas where you have people with, peculiar languages. The next slide, please. So for the PDP, their candidate was Atiku Abubakar. We saw them, pushing the message of a vote to recover Nigeria. So their payoff lines in most of their outdoor communications was really about telling people to recover Nigeria, while on television, social media, and other places, they were able to give depth to all of that. Then, like I said earlier, we got endorsements by their support groups. Also, messages were interpreted. Next slide, please. Then for the Labour Party, which was more like the fighter in the whole, among the lot, we saw them pushing for a new Nigeria, saying that a new Nigeria is possible, for a better Nigeria, a better Nigeria is possible, for a more united and productive Nigeria. This is our choice, our voice, bringing to governance public and private leadership experience, taking Nigeria from consumption to production, also interpreted in different languages, like I mentioned. Next slide, please. So for NMPP, their campaign and all was predominantly around their presidential candidate, like someone observed earlier, and they were pushing that the new Nigeria is possible, that their presidential candidate was tested and trusted, that's Rabiu Kakwanso, endorsement by support groups and all of that. Let me try and rush this bit because I think I'm running out of time. Use of outdoor, so we try to now break it down to the good, the bad, and ugly part of it, Then next slide, please. Next slide, please. Please go to the next also, so that I rush it. That use of outdoor was basic, mainly artwork, pictures, logo of the parties, party name, short message for their payoff line, and that was basically it. Next slide, please. So for the good, like I tried to break it down earlier, we saw them pushing because outdoor gave them wide audience reach. They were able to penetrate as much as possible. It gave them increased visibility. Next slide, please. It gave them targeted messaging. They were able to reach people in their various locations, irrespective of the languages, the demographics, and all of that. Then brand recognition. So for instance, most candidates that were really not known, Outdoor was able to help them splash their faces across and push their name and their messages across. Next slide, please. Reinforcing other advertising efforts. So like I mentioned earlier, irrespective of what they did on television, social media, print, and all of that, Outdoor gave them that opportunity as a reminder medium and a reinforcing medium to, for their messages to be out there and to push people, gave them that call to action for them to know how to vote, identify the logos, and go about that. Next slide, please. So talking about the bad, some of the negatives we actually noticed was that most of them were flying under the radar. They weren't really going to APCON for vetting and all of that. And for what we've seen so far, we noticed that the advertising, the regulators were overwhelmed at such times because of the short period of the campaign. And most of us will bear witness that in our environment, we suddenly saw billboards, posters pasted indiscriminately everywhere, and all of that. And it was not something regulators could really catch up with, So I think, give and take, we are believing that about 30% actually of the lot for Outdoor, went through regulators. That we'll be able to confirm at the end of our research work. Then government interference, that's another negative. In areas where you had some strong governors and all, they tended to put away, to black out parties, candidates from other parties in their environment, giving only their own candidates the opportunity to use Outdoor and push their messages across. Then we saw for the ugly, let me just round up. For the ugly, we saw negative campaigning. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We saw negative campaigning, where they were attacking their opponents and all, and we saw them destroying each other's billboards and things like that. Environmental clutter, we saw boards everywhere, pasting posters everywhere. If they could paste in our bedrooms and our home, they want to do that at such times. Next slide, please. Overall, Outdoor advertising was a powerful tool in the 2023 political campaign and was used strategically and in conjunction with other advertising efforts and other media platforms. So, in conclusion, the bad and the good, the bad, and the ugly that we have seen. Yes, they are bad. Some parts are bad and everything, but if we learn the lessons from them, we believe we will get it better the next time. Thank you very much. Let me stop. Apologies for the extra time I used.
Thank you very much, Amma. So at this point, I will invite the next speaker, and that's Dr. Abimbola. Dr. Abimbola, Raphael Abimbola, is a public relations specialist. He's also the head of the mass communication department at Adekunle Ajashin University, Ondo State. Dr. Abimbola will be representing the public relations team. Abimbola, are you ready? I'll have your slide up.
I am.
Okay, excellent. Your slide is coming up shortly. And I will share it. All right, take it away. Okay. And just say next when you want me to move on to the next.
All right. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening, dear participants. This is the PR team. It's like somebody is.
Hello.
Who is saying hello?
Please go ahead, Dr. Abimbola. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. This is public relations team, and the team members are here listed. Professor Emmanuel Dandara from Nasarawa State University is the team lead, and I co-led with him. We have other members, both from the US and others in Nigeria. Please, next slide. Let's go straight to the business. Next slide, please. We have the objectives of our study. So we want to determine the dominant communication public relations products that the parties used, then the vehicles they used to communicate them, then their focus on serious issues and horse races, then the reputation strategies they adopted, the mudslinging strategies they used, and how they responded to such. But for the sake of this conference, we are focusing on two objectives that are highlighted in purple: the dominant communication public relations products and the focus on the issues. Next slide, please. Please move to the next slide, ma'am. And so the scope of our study, we tried to study three dominant parties and their candidates. They are there because we believe that these three, they were the first in the ranking, build up to the election, and even during the election and after the election, their performance. So we zeroed in on the parties and their candidates. The APC, represented by Bola Chinedu, the PDP represented by Atiku Abubakar, and the Labour Party represented by Peter Obi. Next slide. Please move to the next slide. So the method we adopted was content analysis. We tried to analyze their campaigns, the public relations strategies they used to drive the campaign, right from this September to the election. And we tried to look at those products like their posters, their media appearances, their political rallies, and others that they did that put them in the public domain in the build-up to the election. And we used the coding sheet to code what they did, both on the media, both on the political rally fields and others. Next slide, please. So the method we used to collect data, we trained research assistants, many of them, and we assigned to about two or three, each state of the federation, to look at the campaigns of these three parties, the campaign of the APC, the Labour Party, and the PDP in all the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. And to make it easier, we used the online means of getting those campaigns and those media appearances and those PR strategies they used from the YouTube channels and the social media platforms of the political parties. So each of our research assistants worked on at least a state of the federation, and all these platforms were used, and all the content were there, and they are still there at the YouTube channel and their social media platforms. So let's look at what happened at the end of the day. Next slide. Now, the first objective, which was to determine the dominant communication products they used. So we found out that of all the strategies they used to put their parties and their candidates in the public domain and make them visible were posters, media appearances, whether on radio or television, and campaign rallies. So those were the dominant ones. And we didn't want to veer into others because I have worked and as other media. So, but what we worked on was to look at those things these parties used to put their candidates and their parties at the forefront and to sell them through public relations. And we found out that for posters, APC posters across the length and breadth of Nigeria filled everywhere, and it was more than that of the Labour Party and the PDP. But the Labour Party featured more in the media appearances. And these parties, as we speak, it is not only their candidates or the officials of the party, even the support groups and also the spokespersons at different levels. So they were all appearing for these parties. APC used media appearance and PDP, but Labour Party used the media more in talking to Nigerians. and selling their candidate. Next slide, please. Can we move to the next slide? So the rallies, we found out that during the rallies and their media appearances, what the parties and the candidates, what they used to market themselves were, one, they used the indigenous languages. Anywhere they got to, they made sure that they communicate first in English, but more in the local language. Even when their candidates did not understand such languages, they will still find people who will interpret and talk to the people so that they will not talk of them. They also use slangs, they use music a lot, proverbs and folklore to drive home their messages. And when we categorize, we found out that of all that they used in those campaigns, the slangs were used more by the APC, followed by the PDP, and the PDP used more, even on the field. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, let's go to objective number 2. We wanted to determine the focus of the parties and their candidates on serious issues and horse races. Contrary to the widespread, the opinion in some quarters that the political parties and their candidates, that they did not focus on serious issues, that they were doing horse races. Our research found out that the serious issues actually dominated their campaigns, dominated their communication, and the non-serious issues came second, because the serious issues got 60% of what they did of their communication content. And this one underscores the fact that the Nigerian media framed these parties and their candidates in another form. While they were talking about security, about serious issues, leadership experience, about economy, infrastructure, health, the Nigerian newspapers were only sensationalizing on the non-serious issue and horse races that these parties were bringing to the fore. So they downplayed the serious issues. And that is why it's like the public were now looking at the candidates as if they left the real issues and were focusing on the non-serious ones. Next slide, please. Now, the non-serious issues that they also focused on, the educational background and certificates of the candidates, their family history, their social life, their public image, their age, their health status, their state of origin or the region of origin as south, south, southeast, northwest, southwest, and so on, and the religion, especially the two dominant religions of Islam and Christianity. These were the non-serious issues. The parties also used all this during the campaign, but I dare say that our findings show that they used more of the serious issues during their campaign. They addressed the serious issues. The APC and the Labour Party were neck to neck on serious issues and not serious issues. That means APC and the Labour Party, they were almost at par when we calculated, and our findings showed that they really addressed the serious issues. And they also addressed the non-serious issues. But the PDP was trailing behind these two parties in their communication. Next slide, please. Now, all the parties, they used attacks, counterattacks, and rebuttals to engage opponents on serious and non-serious issues. That is, when each party or candidates made claims on what they will do, say on security, say on infrastructure, and especially the opposition parties, the Labour Party and the PDP, they were not in government, and so they could criticize the APC that was in government. Whenever they talk about what they wanted to do, what they are talking about is economy, infrastructure, these parties will attack them. They also use counterattacks and rebuttals. The same thing on the non-serious issues, especially on the age of the candidates, all of them, the age factor, the religion factor, the educational qualification factor, and what have you, all these things, they attack themselves, and they also they use rebuttals and counterattacks to address issues. But we saw that from our content analysis that PDP used counterattack the most, and followed by the APC and the Labour Party. So, but the PDP also used rebuttal the most, but the Labour Party concentrated less on responding to attacks. So the Labour Party concentrated more on on its own agenda, and it was also attacking. But when attacked, Labour Party was less interested in responding to attacks. It was seen in the candidate of the Labour Party, wherever he went, he will be talking, even when he was being attacked by the other parties, he will be talking that they were my senior brother, they were my this, they are this and that. So the Labour Party concentrated more on the issues they want to do, whether serious or non-serious issues, and they responded less. But PDP responded more for the counterattacks, and followed by APC. Let's go to the next slide as we try to conclude. Now, we found out that serious issues such as economic, security, infrastructure, leadership experience dominated the campaigns. As I said earlier, it was contrary to widespread belief that the parties and their candidates were just being carried away by the non-serious issues. But our content analysis of the campaigns throughout the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja showed that the serious issues really dominated their communication. And the non-serious issues, they also have time for that, for them, but not as they had for the serious issues, which we have listed earlier, like their educational background, family history, their age, their health status, their religion, and all the rest. So our research is still ongoing because we planned to also talk to the handlers of those parties and their candidates. But the only aspect we have been able to do now is to look at what they did, their communication strategies that were visible, that we could get from the YouTube and their social media platforms. Thank you for your attention. I'm done.
And thank you for another robust presentation. We'll we'll take questions after this next presenter. So we'll go on to our next presenter. And at this time, it is my pleasure to invite Emeka Odibeli to present for the social media team. Emeka is a consultant on digital transformation. Emeka, are you ready?
I'm ready, ma'am.
Excellent. I will have your slide up. And just say next when you want me to move on to the next one, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be handling the works from the social media action research team, and it was headed by Dr. Osita Animeka. So it's a privilege to be here to give you the briefs that we've done thus far while we are still in process. Next. So our social media work had to start off with showcasing the capacity of what weight we had to go through trying to cover the elections using every part of social media based on its large engagement. And we had to factor the following: the huge user base, nationwide bond, because it has now made us become a very small village and a nucleus, and how far we are able to now model governance in everybody's device. Next. So social media, and as we know, has been able to help people in a good way and in a bad way, because we've been able to see the good effects and we've been able to see the outrageous effects with how people manage social media and the elections. Precisely, we could see that people were throwing accusations, bringing facts and false facts against all the presidential aspirants just to be able to see to it that they were able to get an edge or an advantage while doing what they had to do with the elections. Secondly, you see that there was direct communication with the voters, because precisely for the Labour Party, they had the largest online followership. They were able to reach their people online, irrespective of the powers that be, being APC, and PDP being the government that just handed over before the APC. There were endless infomercials, and they were shared on multiple platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even on WhatsApp, and other platforms that people were able to communicate regularly on. And there was a lot of misinformation. We could see the advent of AI being used to manipulate people's voices. We could see the people using Photoshop and Premiere Pro and other video editing platform apps to be able to see that they were able to mismanage information, videos from even previous elections, bringing them into current electoral flow, to be able to see that they can hold the audience how they want, because everybody was in search of new news, and they were getting them on various pressure groups that they were able to create on these platforms. Then we could see the effect of peer pressure. You go to a campus and you are talking to people about the election, and the person on campus is telling you, there's this person, there's this candidate for the young people. You go to the civil servants, and they're telling you that there's this candidate that we're looking out for. You go to the market people and tell you that there's this other candidate that we're going to. You even see the market people use social media to drop instructions and tell you, don't open your shop because it's going to be campaign, or if you vote for this person, we'll seal your shop. Things like this were things that we're able to see play out in the social media space. Next. So, social media, based on how it stands, is not new to Nigerians. It has blown. It has gotten to an exponential state where even children can tell you what is happening in our electionary space because of how much the news is coming down to every device. We also see that 16 million new registered young voters came on board, and this was a very big milestone to this election, simply because people were ready to come out to vote. People were interested in voting, simply because there was now a stronger awareness as to the power that they had as voters, and also as to the power that they could bring forth to be able to influence the elections. And with this on ground, there was even a time where they had to do extension of the date, simply because there was pressure on social media as to people that had not been able to meet up, people that needed to catch up, and people that wanted to get involved in the process. Then we can see that our presidential candidates competing increased. And not only did they increase, they also got involved in the social media space to be able to play with the voters and to be able to communicate their goals, their ideals, so as not to lose the larger voters population around. Wider audience than what has even or what was experienced by the traditional media. We've already gotten summaries from various other traditional media present, and we can see that the social media presence for the election was never envisaged, and nobody ever thought it was going to get as large as it became. Next. Social media as a change agent was very prominent in this election. We could see how that people woke up every morning to be able to check for the latest news. What has happened between yesterday night and today? What are the things that are being changed in the political space? Who are the candidates that are being dropped? Who are the candidates that are losing the vibes in the streets and all? And we could also see that with social media, people could tell you, this candidate is strong, this candidate is weak, this candidate is making progress, this candidate is not making progress. There was even a particular day where one of the APC presidential aspirants said that he doesn't go to social media anymore because it gives him BP, because he sees what people are saying, which to tell you that people were constantly bringing out, airing their views, airing their worries, and airing their anxieties on social media. And we can now see, how will I put it, comprehensively, that social media and politics are married. They are now meshed, because everybody online has an affiliation, everybody online has a view, everybody online has a disposition towards the political space, and they are airing them constantly using their social media platforms. Politicians send stories to people's smartphones. We even created WhatsApp groups, and they were able to send updates daily to be able to let their followers know what next steps to make and what to do and things to be able to counter constantly. And with social media, we were able to see that even the news media played with what was coming out from the streets, what was coming out from people's devices, what was coming out from the social media platforms as updates, to be able to be able to create further viewpoints and further news harmonizing points for the elections. And we can see that the Nigerians play on all available social media platforms, from Twitter, every Facebook, the Facebook groups, the WhatsApp business, the Instagram business, every major platform, even on LinkedIn, we could see that people were constantly very active. Next. We carried out the population sample with students that were part of our CBN Vocational and Entrepreneurship Development Center in Delta State here. And it was the class was very unique because of the 560 students that we have in class, the 519 who took the poll are a cross-section, or what we call a sample statement of what the nation feels like. We had people that were high school graduates, we had OND and NCE graduates, we had post-NYSC graduates, we had people that were doing their masters and PhDs, we had engaged entrepreneurs, and all of them came out in all their strengths to be able to put their energy to tell us their views from their various social media platforms. Next. And with the poll, we were able to get that 57% were very active on Twitter, 48% were active on Facebook, 47% were active on WhatsApp, and TikTok had 29%. Many people were not using TikTok for the social media banters. Rather, TikTok was more like for the skits that had electionary content. But for Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp, also with Instagram, we were able to see that there was a lot of content being created by individuals, even without being funded by the parties, just to be able to see to it that we're able to carry their audience into a particular viewpoint and to support the particular candidates. Nigerians, to a good extent, even on the street and with our poll, you could tell that there was a lack of trust in conventional media. Majority of them felt that conventional media was giving them information that had been traded for, that had been paid for, and that had been manipulated. So everybody's view was not balanced. They believed everybody had a biased view. So they were rather playing with things that were giving them more like live approach to news on social media rather than playing with conventional media. And it's obvious that with the millennials and the Gen Z, we have more of people who trust social media with whatever it gives to them, whether it's right or wrong, more than they would trust conventional media. And we know that with all this, social media is not a perfect news source, but so our action results, we were able to get real-time fact-checking, and that was very huge because it was able to give people clear indication of what was happening real-time. So if the news was coming out now, we're very sure that in more than 30 states of the country, people were getting the same news at the same time, and it was verified that it was an updated version of the news. Social media came over to carried over to kind of speak for voters, yes, because social and the cravings of the people to the candidates. Shrinking RTV audience puts Twitter and Facebook in the lead. Yes, because Twitter and Facebook were the banter points. They were the places where people were able to have the cyberbullying and counter-bullying, and people were able to push their strengths to their audience, even using other languages beyond English. Facebook's explosion with political advertising was a record high during this electoral period. Next. So, in summary, with all in process, being that this is a continuous research that we are doing, we are looking forward to being able to check out more algorithms and further statistics that will be able to help us get the core activities that took place within the electionary period with using social media. And we look forward to a more robust outcome, which will be coming to everybody soon, with the unpacking of the research methods of continuous and constructed weeks. Next. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. That was very interesting. So I'd like to invite Mope. Mope, you there?
Yeah.
Mope? Okay.